Just wanted to ask again on how this will be paid for.
One of the things we've said from the start, there's a few big decisions in the very near term for the government. Some of them cost very little. Others have a more significant impact. Today's announcement and this focus on meeting our own responsibilities to protect Canadians, but also our NATO obligations at the same time. This decision that we're announcing today and the associated summit at NATO towards the end of this month, those are significant events from a budget perspective, and we wanted to get to a point where we had addressed those. We have just begun the process to look for savings in government, to improve government productivity, to reallocate spending across government. So getting greater traction on that and clarity on the scale of that will be important for the budget. Budget will be delivered in the early fall. The Minister of Finance will be more precise in due course. But we just cut taxes. We're not raising taxes. We just cut taxes.
That's what he said today. But then again, where do you come up, as we just talked about, $9.2 billion for this extra money in defense or military spending? James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette's on the line. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Aaron, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to be back. Slow news week. I'm glad to.
Well, yeah, you go away for a week and the whole world gets turned upside down. Hey, listen, I was listening to you talking about this whole Carney thing with NATO and the defense spending, and it didn't occur to me until like maybe an hour ago, having put all this together, and especially his comments about our partners in NATO. A lot of people are looking at this as perhaps a way to appease Donald Trump, who has been very, very arch about Canada's, and quite rightly so, about Canada's lack of spending on its military commitments. I think this is more a message for our partners in NATO, as he likes to call them. I think this is more a message that when he goes to the Netherlands at the end of the month for this NATO summit, he will not be perceived as a deadbeat. I think the message that Mark Carney wants to send Europe, and certainly at the military level, but also perhaps at the political level, is I am not Justin Trudeau. I am not a tweeting, virtue-signaling, finger-wagging village scold. I am, in fact, the Prime Minister of Canada. I know I have responsibilities, and I'm going to fulfill them. As to where the money is going to come from, I don't know. I get the impression that, he says no tax cuts. There will be cuts. I'm sorry. I know he's a central banker, Aaron, but the laws of arithmetic apply to Mark Carney just as they do to anyone else. And the fact is the money's got to come. If you're not going to increase taxes, you are going to have to cut expenses. Will we see a follow-through on the reduction of the bloated federal civil service? Will we see perhaps certain programs which on their own may not seem like a big drag on the budget, but if you can round up a couple of dozen of these things that perhaps no one has ever heard of, and which are, perhaps fossilized antiques from the Trudeau era, he might want to get rid of those. But it's very clear that by holding a press conference and giving us precise timetable, and perhaps even more importantly, because, most Canadian prime ministers, Tory or Liberal, they love the toys, they love the submarines, they love the planes. He talked about paying Canadian Armed Forces personnel a decent wage. He talked about training them, getting them decent housing. And let's face it, the way things are going with the States, we talked about it briefly. We didn't return to it, but I can think of $19 billion, which, if not spent on F-35s from the U.S., could be redeployed elsewhere in our military budget and indeed our federal budget. But it's very, very interesting to hear him talk about this. Very interesting to hear him make it clear. He really has. I mean, he's talked himself into a corner, Aaron. He can't weasel out of this. This is very, very unequivocal. He's going to spend the money. We are going to reach our target, and that's it. And it's going to be, I think, it'll be interesting to see how the message is received by NATO and to a certain extent by Donald Trump.
Yeah, the other end of that, though, Jim, there's two things, and I should have asked Colton Prale, but we didn't have time. Don't forget, this is not a majority government. He's going to need support from the Conservatives here to get this thing passed, because I can't imagine the NDP or the Bloc are going to be helping out. So, but I can't see an opposition party simply saying, no, we don't think this is a good idea. So,
well, certainly not the Conservatives. Yeah. I mean, the Poilievre Conservatives have spent, the past 10 years, thumping their chest like some semi-camouflaged cross between Rambo and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Predator. I mean, these are a bunch of tough guys. I don't see anybody in the caucus voting against the idea of spending more on the military. Right. They'll do it grudgingly. They'll say, well, it's not enough and it's long overdue. It doesn't matter. They will throw in. I think this is a lead pipe cinch for the Carney government. And as for the rest of the Bloc Québécois, and frankly, the NDP, I wish there was a more gentle way to say this, but no one cares how they're going to vote on this.
I will, by the way, point out one thing. You mentioned NATO and the big meeting coming up. You heard the number mentioned, right? Great, we're going to hit 2%, but they're not talking about going to 5%. Yeah. What happens then?
Well, what happens then is first of all, I think we really have to show that we're not talking through our hat even when it comes to the 2%. I mean, we also heard, yes, Trudeau privately said we'll never make the 2%. And now publicly we're saying that we will. So I think anybody in NATO is going to look at that as a step forward. The other issue, of course, is there's a lot in this for us, Aaron. I mean, the reality is we can no longer rely on the United States for anything, much less, military defense. And, while you were away, you may have heard about that rather interesting attack launched by the Ukrainian intelligence service that involved a bunch of drones, each drone probably destroying 1,000 times more value of Russian military hardware than the drone is worth. And this is a huge development. Some people say it actually changes the nature of warfare in the 21st century. But the real issue here as well is that it changes the price tag. I think there is going to be a real effort on the part of Canada and perhaps other NATO nations to take a look at the idea that maybe we don't have to have a big fancy chrome-plated gizmo to keep our military strong. Maybe simple, cunning and some good old-fashioned low-tech will be enough. We certainly have proof of that last weekend.
You got to wonder, the thing that really stuck out to me, because I don't follow this, and I wonder how many Canadians paid attention when Mark Carney was speaking, Jim, the idea that our equipment now is in such bad shape to begin with. What do you say? One of our 4 submarines is the only one that's functioning right now?
Yeah, the submarines were a scandal from the get-go, right? We bought used recycled submarines. One of them caught fire. Sadly to say, it was a fatal fire, and this was years ago. This was just a huge embarrassment for this country. And the idea that, the CF-18s, well, they're out of date and this and that. I think to a certain extent attitudes are changing as well in terms of hardware. But once again, do you really need nuclear power submarines? We don't have, as far as I know, we don't have a ballistic nuclear arsenal. Maybe we can get by with diesel. Maybe we can get by with more conventional forms of submarine warfare. But all that said, it seems to me the message today, apart from the spending, is that we're going back to the drawing board. We're taking this seriously, and we are rebuilding our military, not from the top down, but from the bottom up, which I think for taxpayers and for Canadians is good news.
Listen, I know you wanted to talk Francois Legault, so I'm sort of out of the loop here. What's new with him?
Oh, everyone missed this one. This is on Saturday. He's talking to the youth wing of the CAQ. They're having a convention up in Lévis. He's talking about the effects of Trump's tariffs on the Quebec economy. And what did he say? He says it's time to work, I'm quoting, it's time to work hand in hand with the federal government. Oh. The stars have aligned for Quebec. The Prime Minister understands the economy. The finance minister is from Quebec. The business minister is from Quebec. Hell, the Prime Minister's chief of staff is from Quebec. We are in a position now where we can absolutely profit from this. So you don't want to be listening to someone like Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, whose only political agenda is to show that Canada doesn't work and to hold a referendum in his first term. And yes, Aaron, I know that this is kind of a Hail Mary on Legault's part, but listen, that those God help me, 16 months until the next general election, if he keeps chipping away at the PQ like that, and as we get closer, the PQ feels a lot more heat on it to explain itself when it comes to a referendum, perhaps all is not lost for Francois Legault and the CAQ.
By the way, do you find it odd, I read this the other day as well, of him now going out of his way to say, no, I'm here, I'm going to be leading the party into the next election, when so many people, and I think you've expressed that opinion as well, you can't see him staying?
No, not with these numbers. Unless these numbers turn around, he will go, because to stay will be to sacrifice your dignity to your ego, which I think is ridiculous. If you, no one's gonna knock him if he turns around and says, "Listen, for the good of the party, I'm going to leave." But all that said, it's clear that between now and perhaps a date to be named later, he's going to do his best to start knocking some of the patina off of the political power of the 5-seat holding Parti Québécois in the National Assembly. And I got to tell you, the way things are going, as we saw, you're gone for a week and everything gets turned around. Things are changing so quickly. We may be having an utterly different conversation about the face of Quebec politics even in a month's time.
Isn't that something? All right. James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Matt.